Ladies, gentlemen, and Herodrum of all ages, we are now a few days into Season 7, and as a lot of people are getting into the endgame itself, more and more of them are asking one big important question. Where are the occult gems, and how do I get them? Yes, that was technically two questions, I'm bad at counting. These gems have a lot of power, increased potential, especially alongside the fact that witchcraft powers themselves are performing better than expected to begin with. But the more players are reaching the endgame, the more clear it becomes that occult gems are essentially our proper, longest-term goal this season, outside of like a paragon level 300. Getting the recipes to begin with for the occult gems isn't too bad, but then the actual materials required for even a magic rarity one of these is just sort of absolutely insane, honestly. And the higher rarity gems require you to craft them using the lower rarity ones as well, so you'll be making a whole bunch of these before the grind is actually over if you want something like a legendary occult gem, which just multiplies the actual required materials too. So it's like a pyramid of crafting. So today we're going to go over how to get the recipes themselves to begin with for all of the occult gems, then how to farm each of the individual materials required for them, and then we'll have a bit of a chat about whether it's a good thing or not, just how long the grind is to use this system to the fullest. First up then, how do you get the recipes? Quite simply, these come from grimoires, which are the books that drop as an RNG chance from seasonal bosses on the torment difficulties, meaning the bosses that spawn from the cocoons within headhunt open world events, as well as the bosses within the roothold mini dungeons too. These will not drop recipes you've already read and learned, so you will actually quite quickly just plow through all of them and get each of the individual recipes just by doing the seasonal activities for a bit of time in the endgame itself. So this part isn't too bad. The difficult part, however, is the raw requirements of crafting these. The first part, and the bit that most people are generally uncertain about, is how to get the actual Fugitive Heads themselves, as this is one of the main crafting materials. These are simply a drop from the Fugitive Head bosses themselves, which have a chance to spawn instead of the regular headless bosses during head rotten activities. Specifically, this refers to the bosses that spawn from the orange cocoon events in headhunt, as well as the bosses within the roothold mini dungeons. Once you reach torment difficulty, each of these has a 1% base chance to be replaced by the Fugitive Head boss instead of the normal headless bosses, up to a 5% chance for torment 4 difficulty specifically. Further, through the draft of whispers seasonal elixir, which comes from whispers, caches and stuff like that, and this increases the chance of a Fugitive Head boss showing up by 50%, so on torment 4 that boosts it to like a 7.5% chance for any head rotten boss to instead be a Fugitive Head when you find them, which is how you collect the material of the same name as killing these bosses. Next up then is the Restless Rot, as it takes 1000 Restless Rot to craft a base rarity occult gem, which is quite a lot of the currency. And this one we've talked about quite a bit generally over the last couple of days, as a lot of Restless Rot is also required because it's the currency for acquiring and upgrading witchcraft powers too. And the general answer to get lots of this then is roothold mini dungeons. They're the best method of getting large amounts of Restless Rot in a short time, with the headhunt zone takeover activity being the second best, especially the cocoon events within these, as they just repeatedly spawn head rotten, which are the enemies that drop Restless Rot to begin with. And also the bosses, the head rotten bosses specifically, do drop a good chunk too. As well, it's worth mentioning that higher difficulty enemies drop larger amounts of Restless Rot as a currency, so the higher difficulty tier you're on, the faster this part of the grind will go. As well, on top of that too, if you end up with an excess of Fugitive Heads and want more Restless Rot, you can exchange one head for 300 Restless Rot at the seasonal crafter, though generally I'd say this isn't really worth it unless you're absolutely swimming in bonus heads, as it's generally easier to get 300 Restless Rot than it is to get one Fugitive Head, unless you get really lucky. Then there's the third part of this, which is gem fragments. The base rarity gems require 50,000 gem fragments to craft. The yellow rarity versions of the occult gems cost 75,000 of the gem fragments to craft, each on top of 100,000 too, as they each require 2 basic blue rarity occult gems to begin with. So 175,000 fragments for one yellow quality occult gem. Then there's the legendary versions of the occult gems too, and these cost 100,000 gem fragments as a base, as well as 1 yellow and 2 blue occult gems too, so that's 275,000 gem fragments total to get 1 legendary occult gem, alongside 4 Fugitive Heads and 4,000 Restless Rot. This is the main material sink by far, it's the gem fragments, and while last season players were absolutely just overflowing with gem fragments, now we wish they were dropping at those same rates. I've been playing a load, and so far I'm nearing like 100,000 of my highest gem fragment. However, I've also not been directly farming gem fragments for a lot of my journeys. Let's talk about how to actively farm these in particular. There are a couple of one-time big booster sources of gem fragments. Both the Coven's Favor reputation track and the season journey itself will give you caches that reward gem fragments, and as you near the end of each of these, the caches will start dropping larger and larger amounts of gem fragments. This can actually be quite the nice sort of infusion of bonus gems, and so it's not a bad thing to just complete these in the background and help fill the gap. But outside of that, that, there are two main methods. The more passive one is to continue doing Whispers of the Dead, completing favors in headhunts, and then just keep an eye out for the specific cache of materials reward from Whispers of the Dead. This is one of the new caches that was added last season, but it's RNG whether you have it as an option or not, but if you pick it, it does drop a good number of gem fragments, so look out for that one if gem fragments are something that you're after. Then the main farmable method and activity is quite simply Infernal Hordes. The materials chest at the end of this that gives you Obdicite will give you a whole lot of gem fragments too, so if you spend all the Aether that you get in your run on this, you'll get a lot. So if you do this activity on the highest difficulty you can amass a large number of Aether on, that's how you get gem fragments the fastest way that you currently can. As far as Infernal Hordes themselves, the best way to get the keys, the compasses to enter Infernal Hordes is from Whispers of the Dead caches, and very specifically the dungeon key cache option if you see that pop up while you're doing Whispers of the Dead. All that said, you may also be wondering which specific occult gems are worth pursuing for yourself, and for the most part that will be specific to your build. However, as you may expect, multiple of the legendary occult gems especially are extremely good for even build enabling in some cases. Personally, I'm aiming for Voice of the Stars as the most important one for my build, because my build is focused around an ultimate, and this makes ultimate skills be affected by all witchcraft tags if you have an aura active. This lets me boost the damage of my ultimate in a number of new ways that I just could not otherwise. And also, Friend of the Bog is another legendary occult gem that's really strong, because personally I have 3 growth and decay powers active, which means that I would just immediately get increased primary core stat, which is fantastic to scale for me, maximum life, which is just great in itself, and then also just permanent unhindered, which would let me just walk right through enemies. With all that considered, you now know where to get the recipes, the materials, and an idea of which ones are worth aiming for too. So that leaves the question, is the current acquisition rate of these good for the player? Well, it depends how you look at it. I would say on the whole, yeah, it's good in concept at the very least. The main reason is that the witchcraft powers themselves are a very fast reward. You can unlock everything except for the lost powers before you even hit max level, and the lost powers aren't too crazy to find and unlock once you actually reach endgame. The leveling of the powers isn't too crazy either, and generally it has minimal effect as well, outside of like numbers increases once you get past the initial lower level breakpoints. And witchcraft as a system holds between your characters too, which means that you don't have to redo it on alts if you make more characters. This leaves a space open for occult gems to be the longer term sort of chase items of the season. We get to have our cake and get tons of seasonal specific power right up front very early, but then we also get to sort of eat it too by grinding it out for those final major power bumps that are exclusive to the seasonal realm too. That said, the specific scaling of it currently is looking like there will be players who will hit like Paragon 280 or even higher before they get their first legendary occult gem, so there's very much an argument that the crafting numbers could be tuned down a little bit, or gem fragment drop rate could be tuned up, and I'm all for that happening. I think that should probably happen if they were willing to, but either way, as a general concept for the system, I do like having the witchcraft itself be a sort of short-term reward, and occult gems taking a bit more doing to actually get done. That just about does it for today, and everyone, a deeper look into occult gems as a system, how to unlock them, how to farm for the required materials to craft them, and then a talk about just how long-term these are looking to be for a lot of players. I hope this has helped you out in some way, and of course feel free to leave your own thoughts on any of this down in the comments below too. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.